Welcome to Run, Build, Grow, the podcast that laces up its running shoes and dives deep into the heartbeat of the communal spirit of running. I'm your host, Andrew Ware, the Runnin' Rev, and I'm thrilled to take you on this exhilarating journey where we explore stories that go beyond the pavement. And you know what? This past Wednesday was Global Running Day. We are celebrating just the spirit and the communal spirit of running all across the globe. And in light of that, we have our first international guest. I welcome on Younès from France, who joins us to talk about his experience training for and running his first marathon, the Paris Marathon. So I got connected to him through, many of y'all know him, Dat Frenchie, Chris Elliott, who is a good friend of mine down here in the Hampton Roads community. Talk about him all the time, always giving me props on my stuff. But Chris connected me with Younès, and as soon as I started to see stuff, I knew I had to get him on. Younès is an amazing and awesome guy. Went after the Paris Marathon, had never really trained for marathons before, and really just wanted to go after, for those Europeans out there, that 42.2K race, 26.2 miles for those of us in the States. And he talks about his experiences in training for that race, what that race was like, his past, his history, and what it has meant to him for him to be able to do that. All right, so welcome in, everybody. Run, Build, Grow is officially going global, international. I am joined here today by Younès from France. This is exciting to get connected with runners, not just here in the United States, but runners all over the world. So Younès, we'd love to get started, as we always do. What is your community and what makes your community awesome? And when we say community, it literally means anything. Who are the folks who are around you, who are supporting you? Who are you running with? I know you got a cool team that you want to shout out, but so what is your community and what makes your community awesome?
Oh, interesting question. I guess I would make a shout out for sure my family, but also I guess my friends and my teammates from my sport team. So I guess this is my teammate. Yeah.
And what's awesome about being a part of those different communities, you talk about your family, you talk about your teammates on handball, what are the things that really connect you to those I mean, obviously family's an easy one, but what are the aspects about those that really connect you to those community environments?
I guess firstly it begins with the passion. For handball, it's an easy one because like we share the same passion, so we can connect like this. But this is the first touch. But in the end, I guess it's all about humanity and like the bond that we share during the process.
And when I reached out, you kind of said that you're a beginner runner yourself. And, this podcast is about it, primarily it's about running. But I think a lot of listeners who have listened to some episodes will have seen that, like, a lot of times our running doesn't start with like the sport of actual running, right? It sounds like for you, it started with handball, which a lot of our American listeners may not be familiar with, except every 4 years when it comes around in the Olympics. But it's an intense sport. But what made you want to focus on running, right? And not to say that you don't run in handball, but what made you want to become a runner, to focus and to run, races and do those kinds of things?
Yeah, of course. Okay. So firstly, handball is like for those who don't know, it's like football but with the hand. So this is how it played. We run a lot. So I was already an athlete. But I think the thing that made me want to go into running more seriously, it was like a challenge. It was the idea that now I have to run a marathon, so I'm involved in it. So I have to prepare it, and how many trainment do I do a week? How do I train to optimize my performance and to make it worth it.
And what sort of support have you found from those who kind of knew you before you took on this running journey, what kind of support have you found in them as you've embarked on? I mean, you jumped in the fire, you went to the marathon and took on that 26.2 mile, or I guess over in Europe, 42.2K, beast of a race.
Exactly.
So I gotta convert everything now, which is funny.
Yeah.
I train in kilometers. I find it easier, but I do, not everybody does. But so what has it been like for you? Not transitioning away from handball, because it sounds like you still play it, but transitioning into being a runner as well. And what has the communities that you've been a part of, how have they helped to support you in that journey?
Okay. For me, I was lucky because I had some friends that were already involved in running or in triathlon. So I could ask them a lot of questions. So how to prepare, what is the most efficient. So they helped me a lot, and it was so great because I could share a lot of things like, okay, how do I do this? What is the best thing to do? Okay, firstly, I didn't have any shoes,
Yep.
so firstly I had to buy one. So I was like, okay, I was like making my benchmark. I was in Decathlon, and I was like, okay, these shoes are great, but okay, maybe this one is better. Why? And all those stuff. So it was a great thing to share with my friends because I think it enabled us to connect more.
Have you been able to find community that's new community to you? Have you been one to go and find like group runs, or like find groups on any sort of like social media or online or anything, groups of runners who also help support you in your journey?
Yeah. Yeah, so there are a lot of groups of runners in Paris. I could have joined some, but with my work and my studies, I didn't have any time to join one. All my trainings, I was training like at 10 p.m. or stuff like this, so I couldn't run with people. So I couldn't. But I know there's this, and for instance, my Instagram and all my social medias are fulfilled with a lot of um, of videos of running and stuff, and advisory of shoes to run more efficiently.
And I guess for a lot of American listeners, that there's a lot of us that aren't really familiar with what the running scene in places like Paris or other places in Germany. We can imagine what they're like here in the United States and where we are.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're not always getting out, or you're not always out there. But what's it like, in Paris? Do you live in Paris, or?
Currently, I live in Paris, but when I was preparing my marathon, I wasn't living in Paris. I was living in the suburbs.
Okay. So what is, the community like out there? What does it look like? And what did it even look like, training for a marathon with this kind of support around you, whether you were getting it from the Paris community off social media, or whether you had an opportunity to maybe run with other people?
Yeah, as I said, you have the opportunity. If you want to, you can really run with a lot of people. I made a lot of run with some friends, and there are communities, as you said. There are groups of runners. Just me, I didn't have the time to join one, so I just run on my own or with friends, and it was really nice to go on it. Oh, I did. Or also run with the colleagues, and it was nice. Like
Oh,
it
nice.
really enable people to connect more.
And so what made you, so I'm guessing, was this marathon, was it your first race that you ever did, or did you do other races before it?
I ran 20 kilometers, the 20
Okay.
kilometers of Paris, like
Hmm.
2 or 3 years ago. So it was a long time ago. So I guess, yeah, even though it wasn't my first race officially, but it was pretty much the first one I prepared really seriously.
And what made you want to, what was the draw for you wanting to run the marathon?
The draw? What do you mean?
Like, why did you want to run a marathon? Like, what made you want to do that? Set that as a goal.
Because I think I would say I'm a yes man. So
Okay.
I had a friend that is studying in New York. He's from Paris. He's one of my best friends, and he had a ticket to run the marathon of Paris, but he couldn't because he's in New York. So he asked me, "Okay, do you want to run the marathon?" I immediately said yes. And then I saw when was the date and the stuff like preparation. I didn't know really what I was getting into.
Did when you saw that 42.4 kilometer number, like what did that spark in your mind?
It's okay for me. It represented a huge challenge. Like I really had to outpass myself, and it was huge. And for real, I was scared from the beginning of my preparation until the end. Like until the moment I began to run the marathon, I was like, okay, it's gonna be too hard. I won't finish it, and it's gonna be impossible. Like
Because I mean, it does look a little daunting. Like no matter how you look at it, whether you look at it in miles or kilometers, I mean, it's a big daunting number because I can look outside my window here and I can look down the road and see where the road turns and curves and know because I've run that a ton of times. It's like, well, that's like a quarter mile. And then you think that, or about let's a quarter mile, about 400 meters. And so, and you just like think about like that distance. And so, it's interesting how, that thought of something that's overwhelming, and then having sort of the commitment to be able to want to go after it. How did you structure your training, how did you structure that time to get from, when you, maybe made the conscious decision to run the marathon? What did your training look like to get to the place where you lined up at the Paris Marathon and ran the 42.2 kilometers?
Okay, so my logic was to firstly run a bit, like to run a small amount of time, like 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers, and then to increase the amount. Like I was running like 3 or 4 times a week, and I then increased the amount of efforts. So until getting to half marathons. So I was making like one half marathons a week, I guess. And then I wanted to reassure myself. So once I told myself I was going to run like 30 kilometers. And so that day I ran 33 kilometers. And this is how I was like, okay, it really reassured me. It was hard, but I was like, okay, if I can run 33 kilometers, I can run 42 kilometers.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of runners agree with that sentiment of you don't take the marathon, you don't take all of it at once, right? You just got to take it whether it's a mile or a kilometer at a time. And even in the training of just I always try and focus on, hey, you can only run like the mile you're in. It doesn't do you any benefit to either get upset over how bad the last one was, or even like try and mentally prepare yourself for the next one, because then you're just going to get totally lost in what you're doing right there, right now. And so when you're going through that preparation, when you're going through that training process, what are some of those things that translated then into race day as you're going from, okay, you spend, 3, 4, however many months training for this race, and then it's race day. And so what from that training sort of translated, sort of came into how you in your mind saw yourself approaching this race, going after this race at the start line?
I guess at the start line, I was like a bit stressed out for this because like, as I said, even though I trained for this, it was still a big thing. Like I never had done something like this before. So I was just stressed out, and I was like, okay, imagine he's not going to pass well, and so all that stuff. And I guess the preparation enables your body to be used to run every time. So it's your body is like used to run, and then when it's the day, you are prepared and your body responds better than if it wasn't prepared for this.
And, I always like to say, we have a marathon down here that gets about like 4 or 5, man, now I'm like blanking on the number. That gets a lot of people running it. I'm just going to say that because I can't think of the number right now. We have a marathon down here that gets a lot of people out. And, I always say that when I step on a starting line, I'm stepping on the starting line with 20,000 other stories, right? The stories that get us there. And yeah. I also like to think that the starting line is as much an accomplishment as the finish line, right? If we've done everything we can to get to the starting line in a good, like, physical, mental, emotional state, then it's not saying the race is going to be easy, because a marathon is never easy. And that's why I've only ever run one, in having run for like 2 decades now. But to say that, like, the starting line is something worth celebrating. And so you talk about this like nervous energy, and I know a lot of people really empathize with that and really feel that. And so when you're standing on that starting line with all of that nervous energy, what are you doing to yourself to maybe tell yourself, maybe remind yourself, I belong here. Like, this is something that I can do. This is somewhere that I can be.
Oh, interesting. Okay, how do you convince yourself that you belong here? Okay, like I guess that's the preparation. Like you prepared for this, so now it's now or never. So now you're in this shit. So you have to take your guts and just go for it.
And there's a lot to say that. There's a great amount of trust in the work that you've put in. There's a great amount of understanding of where you are. And especially for someone like you, who does have another sport that you play and is someone who is attached to some sort of athleticism. I wonder, for you, coming from handball to running and continuing to play handball, but I wonder how much that translates into the mental state of running. What does it look like for you in playing handball that then mentally translates over into running?
That's an easy one. So I guess because I said I was nervous before the beginning of the marathon, but I had also my reflexes of handball. Like, I was also really focused on the run, and because I want to succeed, and I want to succeed well. So I wanted to do it like the faster as fast as possible. So firstly, I was like, okay, firstly, you have a plan, so you shouldn't go too quickly at first. So it was really the idea I had, like, okay, don't go too fast, don't go too fast, don't go too fast. And I guess the mindset that I have in handball, that I always want to win, and like, you really want to win, is so important. It goes into the running, because you're like, okay, you always want to go faster, and you want to finish as fast as you can. And so you do everything that is really logical, pragmatical, and in order to finish it the as fast as possible, without like cracking and walking.
Yeah, and to bring that perspective into it, as you're doing the marathon, you want to do it to the best of your abilities, right? And I think that that's where a lot of people kind of get their heads mixed up, is either they try and compete like beyond their abilities, or they, don't give themselves enough credit for where they are. So when, the air horn goes off, and, you're wave or corral, I'm not really sure how they do it, but you cross that starting line. How are you taking those first few miles first few kilometers in the race? Like, what are you doing?
Actually, I even though I was really focused about doing it well, there's a huge crowd at the first. They are making a lot of noises, So they are like hyping you to go really fast. They are like, whoa, go, go, go. So they are cheering you up a lot. And so the first 500 meters, you're like, okay, you couldn't go slowly. You had to go fast. So the first 500 meters, I went fast for no reason, because it was just like the crowd and the hype. And then I was like, okay, so you have to reduce your rhythm and to go at a controlled pace, which I have done. But for me, at first I was a bit scared, because I had I don't know how we can say this, like a point in the heart. I was a hot ache, I would say. And so I was like, okay, what's going on? So you have to keep it cool. And then I kept it cool, and it was really better. I controlled my pace, and it was really nice for the rest of the run, because I couldn't go for the whole run like this with this ache.
Yeah. So as you look back and think back on that race, I think it's been about a month or so since the race.
Exactly, about a month.
Yeah. So for you, what was the most memorable part of this? I mean, especially, race in the hometown where you live, or home city where you live, and all that stuff. So for you, as you look at this accomplishment of completing the marathon, what would you describe as one of your most memorable moments from that race, from that run?
I guess there are a few moments that are really memorable. I guess I would say two kind of moments. Like firstly, there are the moments where I was in pain. Like I was really in pain. Like a lot in the end of the marathon. I was really in pain. I couldn't go anymore. My face was down and it was hot. And so I guess this is a moment like I can really remember, because I was at some point almost giving up, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it forced me to go over to go beyond my capabilities. So this is the first kind of moments. And the second kind of moments would be the moment where I saw some friends at the border of the course, that they came to cheer me up. So, and I also have one friend that ran for 1 kilometer or so with me, and it was really a huge moment I can remember. So it was awesome.
Can you talk about, I mean, that sideline support, or course side support that we get, whether it's from friends or family, or I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm trying to translate all this stuff, but I think about all the signs that are along the course, all the people who like put thought into like just what some crazy kooky signs would be for these race days and stuff like that. How did it feel for the community in Paris, right? For them to show up and cheer on the however many runners that are running. What did that mean to you for that community to show up?
Oh, it meant a lot. Because I worked a lot for this, and like all the people that showed up that day, it really meant a lot, because I really felt for at first their support, but the support meant their love. So it really meant a lot for me. I was like, okay, they really love me, and this is awesome. They thought about me, and they were there to see me and to support me.
And what does it look like for you now? Because as runners, we kind of get into that mentality of, excuse me, we get into that mentality of we seek out that first marathon, right? And I've talked about on this podcast before of the marathon almost kind of seems like that achievement that every runner has to hit. And whether we agree with that or not, you're kind of in that boat of, now you've done the marathon, right? You've hit this big white whale and you've done it. What were the emotions like for you coming off of that? And now what does motivation look like for you now that you're beyond that first marathon? You spend all that time preparing for it, and now you're on the flip side of that. What is it? What were the emotions like when you finished, and now even so, a month out, what does that motivation look like for you to either continue that journey or do the next thing?
Okay, so I guess firstly, the first emotion you have is you're so happy. Like you run the
Mm-hmm.
marathon, you did a time you wanted, so you're happy. So really a huge happiness, a huge happiness you can share with the friends. So really, it's awesome. So this is the first emotion you have, and then you have a little bit of emotion, like it's a void. So you feel a big void, like you're okay, I did something great, it's awesome. Okay, but so now what is going with my life? What am I going to do? So and then for me, I had other challenges, like with handball, I had other things
Mm-hmm.
to do, and also I ran a triathlon, so swimming, running, and biking, because
Mm-hmm.
also friends proposed me to. So I guess the thing is like you go on with new objectives and you aim for new targets, like new challenges, and in sports, but also in other aspects of your life, in career, in social things, and a lot of things you can think of. And also, I would say something like an emotion you have after the marathon. Like you go on social medias and all you see is people who run the marathon, and you're like, okay, you're really not special. Like it's everyone run the marathon is like, and you see a lot of people who run it way faster than you. So you're like, okay, you're really not special. You don't have anything special. Running the marathon is the absolutely average thing. Well, it's not, but also it's true. There are people who can run the marathon and faster than you.
I think it's like 1% of the world's population has run a marathon in their lives. But friends, Younès here is humbling us in our marathon experiences. We are both special and not special at the same time.
Yeah.
And but I mean, like, I think that's a great mindset to like think, because as runners and as people who are on social media, one, we can think to ourselves in a negative light that, oh, we're the only ones doing this, right? And I think that's why I love to focus on, on a starting line, there are a number of stories equivalent to the number of participants. And so, like 50,000 people, there are 50,000 stories on that starting line. There are 50,000 people who got to that journey. And if there are 50,000 finishers, there's 50,000 finishers in that marathon. And it's not that, it takes away from that specialness for us, because we know that we've accomplished something for ourselves, but it reminds us also that, like, there are so many other people on this journey. Like, we're not alone, and all these people who are doing great and amazing things, whether it's whether they are faster than us or not, it's almost like that humbling thing of, okay, yeah, I think that I'm special because I do this, and yet we've created this whole community around us that we're able to see. And how that then adapts, like, into how you're going on from this marathon, and what the next steps look like, and your motivation to continue. How much of that motivation continues to be driven by that passion that you talked about at the front, especially that passion for I could speak for myself, back when I was in high school and I played soccer, football, that for me, running became a way to stay in shape for the other sports that I love. How much of that is, okay, yeah, I do. I've found a love for running. How much has that developed in this time? Have you found a love for running, or, is it something else that continues to drive this?
Well, at first, when I began to run, it was like really well, before preparing the marathon, I was a bit running, like to prepare to be healthy, to prepare for my handball things I had. But it wasn't a part of pleasure for sure. And then I began to prepare the marathon. So it was nice because I ran more and more amounts of kilometers. So it was so satisfying to do. And but now that I finished it, Of course, I run really less than I run for the preparation. And I keep running like for health and like to with some friends sometimes. But it's I wouldn't say it like it's a passion. I would do. It's not a passion, but I enjoy running from sometimes. So, but it's not a passion like just running. I wouldn't run if there is not an objective there after it.
And I think a lot of us can empathize with that because, you know, it feels like when we go after one thing that the motivation then can die down, and we try and remain connected to almost that, like, why do I run? Like, what is that why behind why I run? And it seems like for you, it really developed over that whole journey of, you know, committing to running a marathon to running a marathon. It seems like that mentality has adapted as you've gone forward. And so what's the I mean, I hate to always ask this of folks, but like, is there a next thing? Like, what is the next thing that you want to do? Is there another marathon that you want to run? I think I heard triathlon a little bit earlier. You know,
Yeah.
what is, maybe, do you have a goal moving forward, or are you in a phase where you're just enjoying, you know, the what you're doing right now?
Okay, so it's like there are objectives that I didn't fix myself yet, but it's like things I maybe want to do some days. There is the marathon of
Mm-hmm.
Valence in Spain that happens like in I guess November or December of this year.
December, yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe because I didn't prepare for so long for this marathon, and I was like, okay, maybe if I prepare like everyone like for 6 months or something like this, I can maybe make really a good time. And I'm like, okay, maybe it would be so interesting if I can make like a sub 3 hours, and it would be awesome, something like this. And also because I run a triathlon, I was like, okay, what's the next move? Okay, maybe the idea of running an Ironman someday. But I I ran my first triathlon and I saw how hard it was, and I'm like, okay, there is a lot of huge path to go to get to the Ironman. But there are like the objective is like always more, and yeah.
How do you keep yourself from not getting lost in the always more? Because I think that always more can maybe push us like too far. And so, what are you doing to like not get caught in that cycle of feeling like you have to like meet someone else's expectations, but that you're doing things that, you know, truly bring passion to you?
I guess I don't really have to do something for it because I have a life. Like I have a job, so it keeps me. I cannot do whatever I want. So I have a job. I have studies to do. So I cannot like just go on my passion and just prepare an Ironman. It's not possible. But yeah, I think this is so my life, like a social life, and also the handball. I keep preparing. So I cannot just go on and yeah, be involved too much in like something like this. And I think it's pretty healthy to have other passions, other things you enjoy. Because if you're just enjoying like one thing is sport, and it's nice, but I think life, it has to be a balance of a lot of things, with your social life, with the one you love, the ones you love, and with the other thing like your work, doing something like you like. Uh, yeah, I guess this is the balance that prevents people from getting too much involved in this kind of stuff.
And I think this is great, you know, because a lot of folks, they have those goals on the horizon. And I think that sometimes it can get, you can't get lost in it, right? You can get lost in just trying to do this one thing, and it gets caught up in your whole identity. So, I think I'm looking forward to see what you do, what you go on to do in the future, where this journey takes you.
But I don't think it's a bad thing. Like if you're just way too focused on one goal, I don't think that's a problem. On the opposite, I think that's a nice thing.
No, not in getting like solely focused on one goal, but like I'd say like getting lost in it, where you then sort of start to take on like negative attributes where it has to be this way or it has to be this way. And you lose, I mean, I think there is a thing in which you lose the flexibility of what it looks like. And so, when your sole focus is only on doing it a certain way. So a marathon, say, I had a buddy who, his whole thing was trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon. And it seemed like the more that he focused on trying to qualify for Boston, the harder it became for him. And so I think sometimes like it's giving yourself a break and then rediscovering sort of where that passion comes from that reconnects you with that sport. And so, I think I don't want to, I don't look at it going against it. I look at, okay, yeah, I want to be, quote unquote, good at running. But to get lost in maybe like what that good at running means, I have to define myself by like other people's metrics or by X, Y, and Z. And so what does it mean for someone to, go after their goals, but then also, not say that goal is completely tied to their identity, that they can give themselves sort of the grace in that.
Okay. I think like the idea, I couldn't be lost in some kind of objective like this because I think maybe I have the idea like you have to zoom out from the window and like to see what you're doing. So okay, you're the best marathon runner of the world. You're Kipchoge. So okay, nice. Okay, just zoom out. Okay, so now you can run 42 kilometers really fast. And so what? And so what?
Yeah.
Just this question, like when you do something, like it's the best thing to do to really get involved in it and to give your best in it. But keep in mind, like this question. So what? So okay, like okay, so you can run the marathon really fast. Okay, nice. So what? It's nice, but it's not like the primary thing you have to keep in mind in your life.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, like, especially like that example, like you look at someone like Kipchoge, who has set has set the world record in the marathon. Obviously, he doesn't hold it anymore, but widely considered, the greatest marathoner of all time. And yet, you talk to him. Oh, well, I mean, I don't talk to him. I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but like, you watch an interview that he has. And I think that you see that down to earth mentality where, he looks at that race and he's beginning to think like, all right, yeah, like what next? So what? And I mean, I think that's a great way to kind of phrase it. That keeps us kind of grounded in that passion and in that purpose, and doesn't kind of bind us by something that maybe does become arbitrary, like the number on a screen when you cross the finish line. But it really attaches you to this is something that I love to do. This is something that I enjoy. And you could probably maybe see a correlation to your experience in handball too, right? It's, you can win a game, you can lose a game. Does that change how much you love handball? Should it change how much you love handball? And I wonder how much we take that into, and even to say like how much that continues to drive us forward. I think about when Kipchoge failed to break 2 hours for the first time, and he's like, it happened. And then what does he do? The next time he comes out, the next time they give him this special event, he's like, I'm bringing it. And he brings it. And I think that's a big piece of how we can approach running too, and even get the best out of ourselves. What does it look like for me to be the best runner that I can be? But yeah, I mean, great conversation. As we wrap up here, Younès, I got a few end of podcast questions that I always love to end each podcast with. So let's learn a little bit more and dive into Younès as a runner. So speed run or long run? Like, do you like to do a speed workout or
speed
go
run,
for like just a long run?
I would say speed run.
Okay. Do you like to run in the mornings or the evenings?
Evenings.
Evenings. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Do you listen to anything while you run?
Bad Bunny. Listen to this album.
Bad Bunny. And then what is your favorite distance to race?
My favorite distance race? I would say like it's a half marathon.
Half marathon?
Because like a half marathon, I guess you can really go fast, but it's still a chill run. Like when you run like a 5 or 10 kilometers, you have to sprint. Whereas like a half marathon, you're chill but you're fast.
Nice. Thank you so much for joining us, Younès. What a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, and I will listen to your podcast now.
Yeah, thank you. Oh man, yeah. As we celebrated Global Running Day on Wednesday, I thought about how much this sport really just transcends the typical nature of life that we may think of. And just to be able to think that I am here in Suffolk, Virginia, in Hampton Roads, Virginia, on the East Coast of the United States, and I can interview someone who lives in Paris, France, and talk about community, have a connection. I give thanks that there's very many international folks who are able to speak English, but it almost seemed like just the language of running really came out and was able to come out in that interview. And I loved hearing about Younès's journey. As you heard, he is a handball player, right? He plays handball and he has his own job and everything. And yet in the midst of all of that, he decided that he wanted to take on this incredibly awesome, seemingly ultimate challenge, and what he learned in the process and how it connected him, not just with his teammates, but with lots of folks around him. And I mean, you see how far that connection goes when it connects to someone who doesn't even live in France, who doesn't even live in Paris, and connects him with someone like Chris, who then connects him with me, because we know that these are the kinds of stories that we love to share with folks. And so I was so grateful to be able to bring Younès on and hear his story, hear about his journey, hear about where he's been, what he's done, and how he's experienced that sense of community. I want to thank all of y'all for hanging out with me here on Run, Build, Grow. And, I'm always looking, as I always say, I feel like I say this all the time, but I'm always looking for guests. And so if you have any interest in coming on, telling your story, I know this is really weird and you don't probably want to reach out, but trust me, you have a story. And so if you're listening to this, send me a message, Instagram, Blue Sky. I'm on Strava. You can make sure to subscribe to my Substack. You can read stuff over there, read stuff I've written, go back and read all those devotions I put up during Lent. You can message me there. You can email me, andrew@runandrev.com. Feel free to reach out and connect. If today's episode gave you a spark, don't forget, hit that subscribe, hit that follow button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. And if you have an extra minute, if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to rate and review over on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on Spotify, you can drop a comment on the episodes. And in fact, like I said, Chris, loving his energy, bringing #1 supporter. Honestly, I'm sorry everybody else, but he comes over and comments on Christie's podcast from 2 weeks ago. Andrew has to lessen his pace for some more than others. Also, I am others. Love this episode and reminder on running the mile you're in. Chris, thank you so much. Honestly, I right now I don't have to lessen my pace. However, yes, I just love to spend time with others, and so doesn't really bother me what your pace is. I love to run with others, and if that means that you get to run easy and I get to run easy, I'm going to run easy. And so thank you so much, Chris, for that comment. Don't forget, also, if you want to take that extra mile and support me, Chris is a supporter over on Buy Me a Coffee, dropping down $5 a month to help support the podcast. I also got a $5 tip from Christy, who was our guest on the previous episode. And so if you are here, if you know Younès and you're here for Younès, just right alongside following and subscribing. If you want to drop a tip, if you loved this episode, Or you, like Chris, want to become a monthly contributor to help keep this podcast going, then I invite you, head on over, buymeacoffee.com/runandrev. All these things, they're going to be in the show notes, so head on over and check them out. Thanks for being here and for being part of this journey. Until next time, go out and crush it out there and make every mile count.